Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ananda, the Galactic Mystic, and today let's talk about some asteroid goddesses of the hearth. All right, I hope you have a cozy beverage, that you're comfortable, because isn't that what the hearth is all about? A big warm welcome to my subscribers, a welcome back. And if this is your first time here, big hugs to you. I hope you enjoy your stay. On this channel, I talk about astrology, mysticism, folk magic, the natural cycles of life and of the earth, of navigating the leading edge of consciousness and conscious relationships. It's all good stuff. So the hearth goddesses are one of my most favorite types of goddesses. Since the beginning of humans' relationship with fire, the hearth has been the focal point of the home and the family, in the community in some cases. And this is true whether it's the actual hearth of the home or it's a community bonfire or a campfire. There's just something about humans gathering around a fire. And until modern times, this was the only source of heat in the home. It's where meals were prepared. It's where stories were told, where the family gathered together to share time. And literally and metaphorically, the hearth represents life-giving, nurturing energy, protection. It represents our roots, our communities, our families, our children, and motherhood. We also can't separate the element of fire and spirit, because we tend to associate life itself with, the flame of the soul. The creative energies of alchemy and passion and sexuality are also central to these themes, the themes of these goddesses of the hearth. Now, most of the time, the hearth goddesses are celebrated and venerated these days during Yuletide and Imbolc, which are winter holidays. So, it's kind of this thing with this period of time after the Christmas season, Yuletide, and before the spring equinox. There's like this tendency for many of us to fall into a bit of depression. And I think there are some statistics that really back this up. Many people just kind of have this kind of blah feeling creep in once all the festivities are over. Spring and summer can feel really far away, and it can kind of feel like there's not that much to look forward to sometimes during this. It's still the deep dark of winter. And so even though the days are getting a little bit longer and we can tell that the light is returning, it can just still kind of feel kind of drab and dull. And this is one of the things I love about the sabbat of Imbolc, because it helps us remember that the earth is beginning to awaken, even though in most places it's still super duper wintertime. It is here in the Appalachian Mountains anyway. And so particularly during this period of time, late January, early February, we can feel kind of lost in the dark. And these hearth goddesses, connecting with them and what they represent, can help us see that new life is stirring. As we connect with their hearth fires, can help us stoke our own. We can connect with these goddesses of the hearth anytime we like. And we can use their asteroids, when we find them in our natal charts. It can show areas areas in our lives, in our psyches, in our divine blueprints, where and how the hearth fires are always burning. So when you're looking at these asteroids in your natal chart, look for tight conjunctions with your natal planets and your natal angles, as well as conjunctions, tight oppositions with each other. You know, the aspects these asteroids make with each other in your natal chart. If this is something that you would like help with, or if you would like to dive deeper into this or into another topic, visit my website and let's do a reading together. So the first asteroid hearth goddess that I want to talk about is the asteroid Brigitta. Now her asteroid number is 450, and this is the Irish Celtic goddess Brigid. Her name means exalted one, and she is an ancient Celtic goddess that is still very much loved to this day, not only in Ireland, but throughout the world. She's a hearth goddess, and she's associated with poetry, craftsmanship, blacksmithing, invention, sacred healing wells, and healing in general. And now in Celtic mythology, she's depicted as being the daughter of Dagda, who's the ultimate patriarch of the Celtic pantheon. And she is the wife of Bres, who was the king of the Tuatha De Danann. Tuatha De Danann. I'm not sure how to say that. They were a supernatural race of divine beings who were kind of like the primordial deities. She was kind of smushed up with Minerva, who is the Roman Athena. However, I don't see them as being the same even in the slightest. In mythology, there's a lot of sort of conflation with a lot of deities, and sometimes, you know, it makes sense, and in other times, to me at least, it seems very clear that these are two entirely different energies, but that's just me. So this is something interesting. When the Celts were Christianized, Brigid lent her name and festival day, February 1st, which is Imbolc in pagan traditions, to the Catholic saint Brigid of Kildare. Now, historians do not agree if there was ever an actual Saint Brigid. Some believe that the church just like literally sainted this goddess to make conversion of Christianity more attractive to the Celts. And it's also interesting to note that she's not a saint anymore, in the church's eyes anyway. Saint Brigid was stripped of her sainthood, I believe, at the same time that Saint Nicholas was stripped of his. And again, some say that it's because of their connection with pagan deities or pagan belief systems. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but some people think it is. So, actual saint or not, she is loved and celebrated to this day, particularly on Imbolc. And this is when altars are adorned with Brigid's crosses, greenery, new shoots of plant life, and of course, candles to represent her hearth. So let's talk about Hestia. Now, in Greek, she was Hestia. In Roman, she was Vesta. And we have an asteroid for each. And this is always interesting when we have a deity that has more than one asteroid, because it really speaks to their importance to the ancient people. Hestia's asteroid number is 46, and Vesta's asteroid number is 4. So in the ancient Greek religion, Hestia was the domestic deity of the hearth fire. And of course, her Roman equivalent was Vesta. So in this world, the Greek and Roman world, every hearth was an altar to her. There was a public sanctuary where the eternally lit flame of the city was maintained in her honor, and it literally represented the spirit or the soul or the life of the city. As a domestic deity of the hearth and home, she was adored. Hestia was the daughter of the Titans, Cronus and Rhea. Now, the Titans were the original gods who ruled before they gave birth to the Olympian gods. Now, the Olympian gods are the familiar ones like Hera and Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and they were all Hestia's siblings. And here we see a similarity, a parallel with the origin of, or at least the birth story of Hestia and Vesta, and the birth story of Brigid, who they were, both daughters of a primordial god. Now, Hestia was the most humble, peaceful, gentle, and charitable of the Olympian gods. And she was really not into any kind of glitz and glamour. She had a simple wooden throne. She really wasn't that interested in love and romance. And, both Poseidon and Apollo pursued her and were unsuccessful. She just was utterly unimpressed. It's interesting to note, too, that ritual offerings to any god at home began with a small offering to Hestia first. Now, as Vesta, the asteroid, of all the objects in the asteroid belt, Vesta is the second most massive and makes up about 9% of the entire total mass of the asteroid belt. And that's pretty significant. She's also the brightest asteroid and can occasionally be seen with the naked eye, which is pretty cool. Now, in the Roman era, Vesta's temples were maintained by 6 virgin priestesses known as Vestales or Vestal Virgins. And the Vestales enjoyed a high level of honor and privilege in Roman society, as well as a high level of responsibility. They were taken in, I think, at the age of 6, and they had to remain virgins and not be married until they were relieved of their duties at the age of 36, which is 6 times 6. And there were 6 of them. And this is interesting to me because the number 6, of course, the 6th major arcana card in the tarot is the Lovers. This will make more sense in a moment. And in Kabbalistic tarot practices, the 6th card of every suit is considered the most perfect expression of each suit. Like this divine Venusian, beautiful divine mother expression of each suit, of the suit of coins, swords, cups, and wands. That's just pretty interesting to me, the connection there. So anyway, their main function was to tend that sacred flame, which was the embodiment of the spirit of Rome. So I can't pass by here without just touching on a little bit about the deeply spiritual and sexual energy here, and that's particularly special about Vesta but also about all of the hearth goddesses to some degree, in my opinion. And this topic alone deserves its own video, as well as each one of these asteroid goddesses deserves a video of their own, which is maybe something I'll do in the future. This whole thing is just kind of an introduction, but I have to mention this. The themes of sexuality and virginity are not like surface topics here. This is the creative energy within us all, and it's the energy that we expend outward into our lives, and it must be replenished. Now, the virginal quality of Vesta does not equal chastity. In fact, it's more about being whole within the self. This is the divine union within, which is where we are all self-possessed. We belong to no one but ourselves, and we are self-fulfilled. Now, it is said that in order to sort of renew their virginity, the Vestales would bathe in healing springs and sacred waters. Now, again, here we have a connection to Brigid, because she was connected with sacred divine healing wells. So this journey into the well, whether this is literal or metaphorical, this represents the withdrawal into the self in order to replenish this inner fire, the inner hearth, so to speak. It's also my understanding that if the Vestales broke their chastity vow, that they would be beaten, tortured, and killed in some cases. So I'm not sure if it's just that if they were caught, they were they were met with a horrible end, or if just among themselves they would sort of renew their purity by healing themselves in these wells. I don't know. History's weird. Vesta was honored annually on March 1st. This is when the Vestales ceremoniously extinguished the temple flame and then reignited it. There was also the festival of Vestalia, which lasted from the 7th through the 15th of June every year. And this is when the innermost areas of the temple were opened up for the women of the communities to bring offerings. They would bring plates of baked goods and flowers and all sorts of things and ask for the blessing of the goddess to bless their homes and protect their households. Asteroid goddess Frigga. Her asteroid number is 77, and she is Frigg in Norse mythology. She is the supreme goddess, the All-Mother. She was primarily portrayed in legend as a divine mother and domestic goddess of marriage and motherhood. Her name means beloved woman, and it derives from the verb Frigga, which means to love. She was the wife of Odin, the All-Father, and again, with their parentage, she was parented by what seems to be either a masculine form of the earth or the masculine and feminine forms of the earth. Either way, again, primordial beings, and then being married to being the All-Mother, which is the sort of the case for Brigid, and Frigga. Frigg and Odin alone were able to sit upon the highest throne. It was a seat that provided them a view of the entire universe. Friday is named after Frigg. It literally means Frigg's Day. Some Germanic traditions smushed up Frigg with Freya, although to me their domains seem quite different, but I do understand that because in some records, the couple is Odin and Frigg, and then in other records, the couple is Ode and Freya. So it's, again, mythology does a lot of conflating, and sometimes we don't know. But it is true that in the Poetic Edda, they are shown distinctly as two different beings. But of course, the Eddas and basically all of the records that we have of both ancient Nordic traditions and the ancient Celtic traditions, all the records were written by Christians. And so we don't really know what the true belief systems were, what the true mythology was in a lot of cases. So there's a lot of guessing work and a lot of kind of, I don't know. It's more about connecting with the energies. That's what I think. You can connect with these beings and they can teach you about themselves. As a domestic queen and goddess, Frigg is the keeper of the home and hearth, and she is also connected with crafts, specifically weaving and spinning. And she is sometimes thought to be the spinner of the clouds. She has the gift of prophecy, and there's a connection with her and what are called the threads of fate, which denote the fate, the lifespan, the destiny of every human being. She's devoted wife and mother, and she was often on her throne alone, overlooking the worlds while her husband Odin, the Allfather, was traveling the realms. He was quite the traveler. Asteroid goddess Ubasti. This is Bastet or Bast, and the asteroid Ubasti, the number is 4257, so you can find it in your natal chart. Bastet is the beautiful and beloved ancient Egyptian cat-headed goddess. She represents the warmth and fertility powers of the sun and is fiercely and lovingly protective of the hearth and home. She is, again, an ancient goddess, and she has been identified in antiquities as early as 3200 BC. So she may be the oldest hearth goddess that we actually have archaeology to back up her history. Her origins as the protector of the hearth make a lot of sense because the people of the Nile Delta shared their land with all sorts of snakes and rodents. And so they welcomed cats into their homes. Now, Bastet carries an ancient percussion instrument called a sistrum and a protective amulet or necklace called an aegis. It's like sort of like a breastplate. And in her case, it has the head of a lioness on it. Now, her worship spread to Italy, and traces have been found as far away as Rome and Pompeii. She was one of the most beloved deities in all of ancient Egypt. And even though she was associated with childbirth and motherhood and domestic matters, the home and hearth, it seems that men and women equally revered her. Cats became sacred to them and were mummified along with their people. There is, of course, the connection of Freya with cats, but again, I guess we're not talking about Frigg and Freya as the same, but it's just an interesting connection still. Anyway, this adoration was at such a level that was used against them in the war with the Persians in 525 BC, which the Egyptians lost. And they lost because their enemies knew that if they painted cats, images of cats on their shields, held cats, I think some of them just kind of carried cats into battle, and they drove cats in front of them as they attacked. So they kept they basically used cats as a shield. And the ancient Egyptians were not about to harm a cat or to attack anything that had the image of their beloved goddess on it. And so they lost the war, and Persia took over for a good minute. So I hope you enjoyed this brief, glossy journey through these fascinating, gorgeous, powerful, beautiful asteroid goddesses of the hearth. Find them in your natal chart if you know how, and see what stories they have to tell you. I promise you that if you make the effort to connect with any of them and then pay attention to synchronicities, you'll be surprised how eager they are to communicate with you. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with me today. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, for being on this journey with me, and I will see you very soon.